There are millions of us out there in the gig economy, hustling and making things happen. But there's a huge question we all need to be asking. Are we really getting paid what we think we are? In this explainer, we're going to dig into the real numbers behind all those side hustles, and honestly, the answer might just blow your mind.
I know, that sounds like a crazy question, right? But for way more people than you'd think, the answer is a big, fat yes. That awesome hourly rate you see advertised, well, it often hides a much, much more complicated reality. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's actually going on.
All right, so the first thing we got to talk about is something called the gross pay illusion. It's this simple but kind of deceptive gap between the money that lands in your bank account and what you actually get to keep. To see how this works in the real world, let's meet Jenna. She's a perfect example of a typical gig worker, maybe a delivery driver, who got pulled in by an offer that looked too good to pass up. So Jenna sees this number, $25 an hour, and she's thinking, wow, that's fantastic. I mean, who wouldn't? It seems like a great way to make a living, or just add some extra cash to her income. And on the surface, yeah, it is. But this right here, this is where the illusion really starts.
Because in reality, that shiny $25 an hour can absolutely nosedive to something like $12 an hour, and sometimes, believe it or not, even less. So where did all that money go? Well, the answer is hiding in plain sight, in all the costs that come with being your own boss.
Right. When you're an independent contractor, you're not just an employee, you're running a small business, and that means you're on the hook for everything. We're talking fuel, of course, but also things like specialized commercial insurance and just the constant grinding wear and tear on your car. And that last one, vehicle depreciation, that's not just some fancy accounting term. It's a real cost that's literally eating away at your earnings with every single mile you drive.
But here's the thing. It's not just about the money you're spending. It's also about the time you're losing. A lot of freelancers and gig workers are basically working a whole second job, an unpaid one, without even realizing it. For example, a freelancer might be billing their clients at a pretty healthy $50 an hour. Seems good, right? But once you start adding up all the time they can't bill for, their effective rate can get sliced by more than half, dropping all the way down to $21. And that's because the billable stuff, that's only part of the job.
If you look at a typical week, maybe, just maybe, a little over half of a freelancer's time is spent on work they can actually bill for. The rest, it gets eaten up by all these other essential but totally unpaid tasks. Things like sending invoices, marketing yourself to find the next client, and even just the time spent driving between gigs. It all adds up, big time.
So you might be thinking, if the pay is lower and the hours are longer, why do so many people stay in these situations? And that brings us to this really powerful psychological side of things, this feeling of being trapped by the very hustle that was supposed to give you freedom. I'm so invested and exhausted. I'm too tired to even look for another job. This quote from Jenna just hits so hard, right? It perfectly captures that feeling. After you've poured so much time and money and just pure energy into something, the idea of walking away and starting over can feel completely overwhelming. It's this vicious cycle of investment and exhaustion that is just so incredibly hard to break. And there's actually a name for this feeling. It's a classic psychological principle called the sunk cost trap. It's our brain's tendency to want to stick with something, not because it's our best option now, but simply because we've already put so much into it. Just being able to name that trap is the very first step to getting out of it.
Okay, so we've talked about the illusions, the hidden costs, and the mental traps. But now, let's get to the good part, the solution. It is time to empower yourself with some real clarity by figuring out your true wage.
And you can do this in 3 pretty simple steps. First, figure out your net income. That's your gross pay minus every single business expense. Second, you have to track all of your hours, not just the ones you bill for. Include all that admin time, the marketing, the driving around, all of it. And finally, you just divide your net income by your total hours. That number, that's your true hourly rate.
Look, the whole point of doing this isn't to get you down or discourage you. It is the exact opposite. It's about giving you the real, unfiltered data so that you can take back control. This knowledge is what lets you make smart, informed decisions about your career. Maybe that means you raise your rates, or you find ways to cut expenses, or maybe it means you start looking for something totally different.
At the end of the day, calculating your true wage isn't the finish line, it's the starting block. It's this incredibly powerful tool for clarity and for change. So the real question isn't just about finding that number, it's about what you're going to do with that knowledge once you have it.